What's up, guys? Welcome
What's
to
happening?
season 2, episode 1 of Character Over Calling, the podcast. Clap your hand. You already know what to do. Come on. Guys, listen. We are back with the second season of your favorite podcast in the world. And if it's not your favorite podcast yet, then, we need to make that adjustment by the end of this season because it's been too long already.
Far too long.
Okay, anyway. But, guys, listen. Before we get started, you already know the drill. I got to tell you who is here with us today, right here in this studio, in a new city, first and foremost. Okay, can see what the Lord has done. In a new city, okay? New space. We are in the city of Atlanta, Georgia. We don't have nothing against the metro. We don't. I love Columbia. Anyway, guys, we're here, and our executive producer is our guest on the show today. Will you clap your hands for Shots by J. Scott? Will you clap your hands for him? Very excellent. Very excellent. Brother, thank you for doing this, for stepping outside of your comfort zone. And, guys, you all see what he does behind the camera alongside with our film director, who is an up-and-coming icon, Tyler Schuler, Cam Scott, who is the maestro, and Gabby, who always gives us the emotional support we need. You all see what Joseph does behind the camera. But he's got a voice, and he has something to say. So I'm excited about the fact that you're here today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I've been put on the spot today, so
yes.
bear with me.
Yes, you're going to be just fine. And don't worry, this is not a job interview because thank you for having me was very job interview just now. But guys, listen, at the end of season 1, we said that we were going to move in a different direction for season 2. Season 1 was all about figuring out what our issues were and even acknowledging the fact that we had them. Season 1 was about acknowledging the fact that we are flawed individuals, but that our flaws do not define where we're going in life. Our flaws do not define our direction unless we decide not to deal with them. So guys, listen, season 2, like I said before, we're figuring out a way forward. We are figuring out a way forward. And I'm going to tell you something about growth. Growth is hard. Growth is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. And for that reason, before we even go on this journey together, because it's better when we do it what? Together. Amen. We're going to do it together this season. But before we even get started, I want to talk to you about something that's very important. I want to talk to you about the process. Y'all, it is so important that you realize that the process of growing, like we said, although it may be uncomfortable, although it may hurt, although it may cost us some things and cost us some people, it's completely necessary. And that brings me to the topic of today's episode, and that is stuck in the process. Stuck in the process. Brother, can you talk to us a little bit about what the process was and getting to, where you've gotten to and being as successful as you've become, photography, videography, school, everything,
Yeah. Start off, I guess I would say the process was more so trying to figure out who you are and trying to figure out where that's supposed to take you in life. I guess like when I was younger, I looked up to my grandfather, first of all, glory to him. And I found something I could do where I could first make money, but also found something I enjoyed doing. But I guess the process itself was not financially. It was more so like trying to figure out how to support myself and have to keep going and doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So that's more so like just the general basis of the process. Like I found myself just like trying to figure out ways to keep showing up for myself and for my business to grow and so I could grow in myself. So.
And the crazy part about it is that some of us, and we said it last season, some of us don't realize that the most important part of what we do is just simply showing up.
Right.
It doesn't happen if we don't show up.
Nope.
And I often say, listen, you can decide not to show up, which is very careless, but we all know who have businesses, who do anything at all. It may be careless, but it's also costly.
Right.
You have to count up the cost before you make any decision concerning your business, concerning your dream, your vision, no matter what it might be. Because listen, it all counts for something. Every minute, every second, every hour, every day, every week, every month.
Time is money.
Time is money. It all counts for something. And the hard part about being in the process, the hard part about getting started is the fact that there will be moments where you feel like it would be better for you to go back to the place that you came from and stay there.
Sure enough has.
Oh my goodness. And why is that? because it is more comfortable for us to be somewhere that is familiar than it is for us to take a chance being somewhere new.
Right.
And the reason that most of us never achieve prosperity, the reason that most of us never get as far as we can possibly go, is because we chose comfort over success.
Right. I'll say too, like a lot of people say they're trying to find what their season is in life and they're waiting for their season. But one thing I was listening to, a preacher was talking about like how we need to stop looking for our season, because every day and every time we're in a season, no matter if it's good or it's bad, we all have winters we're going through. But sometimes we feel like because we're more familiar with what's going on, it's what we should be in. So,
and I'm telling you, sometimes, what do they say? Familiarity breeds contempt. Whoa. Familiarity breeds contempt. The crazy part about that statement is this. Some of you are so familiar with your surroundings that it has bred contempt for the future vision that you have for your life.
Right.
You cannot even move forward into where you're going. You cannot even embrace where you're headed because you're so busy trying to stay where you've been. And let me tell you something, in the moments that you feel like it would be better for you to go back because you can't see the end of the tunnel where you're headed to, you've got to confront that emotion. You've got to confront the feeling that it would be better for you to be stuck where you were than to be on the journey to get to where you're going. Why? Listen, emotions are very real, and emotions tell us a very real story. But the story that they're telling us is the story of where we are and not the story of where we're going.
Right. Got to rewrite your thinking.
You have to literally rewrite that narrative in your mind. And what I'm trying to figure out for the place that I'm at in life right now is, how do I even do that? You know, some days it's easier said than done. Some days I feel like I'm completely capable. I'm not gonna lie. Some days I feel like, I'm in complete control of the situation. I can decide how I feel. I can talk positive to myself. Yeah. And there are some days
it'll be okay
where my mind is out. Okay. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I,
I wake up and choose myself every day.
How do I wake up and how do I wake up and choose myself? And how do I wake up and choose my destiny? When my destiny has been beating my behind all week, when everything that's in front of me looks exactly opposite of what I promised myself and what God promised me, how do I keep choosing myself? How do I not take the easy way out?
And we look for that like in others to give, but deep down we know we have to choose it ourselves. We got to figure that out on our own.
Nobody can give that to us.
Nobody can.
No one can convince you to move forward toward your future and move forward toward what God has for you like you can.
Right.
Because the reality is this, and some of us struggle with this when it comes down to our visions. We get upset when people don't see what we see.
Right.
You're getting upset right now because your family and your friends cannot see why you're motivated to do the things that you're doing and why you're striving after it the way that you are. And the reason that they can't see it is because the vision was not given to them.
Wasn't.
There's a scripture in Habakkuk that says, write the vision, make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it.
It's in the book.
It's in the book. That means that it will be absolutely difficult for anyone to understand the vision that God has given you unless you write it.
All right.
And some of us have gotten caught up, had a little stroke, have gotten caught up in trying to get people to understand something that hasn't even been written yet.
How's anybody going to understand what wasn't destined for them?
Listen, and I'm going to tell you something else. And we may have said it in season 1, but I can't remember. People will give you advice based on the cynicism of their bad decisions. What place are you in to give me advice about where I'm headed or where I'm trying to go if you've never striven for it yourself?
Be careful who you listen to.
Be careful who you listen to, because, listen, faith comes by hearing. And you have to be careful about what you allow into your ear, because whatever you allow into your ear will take root in your heart. And so that takes me to my next point. Some of us are listening to people that are telling us that it would be easier for us to go backward than go forward.
Family.
family,
friends. It'd be the ones who are right there next to you every day.
I'm telling you, like, well, Tyson, if it's not working out right now, maybe take a step back.
Maybe you shouldn't do that. No, why are you doing that?
Why are you doing that? Why do you even have a nonprofit that gives scholarships to poor kids?
It wasn't for you. That's why.
Why would you do that? Why are you focusing on that right now? Let me tell you something,
sweetheart.
Let me say something, sweet, bro. Let me tell you something, sis. Okay, listen. People will tell you that it will be easier for you to move backward than to move forward. But the reality is you don't need them to tell you that because it would be easier initially. What you have to do is begin with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. If you don't keep your eye on the fact that there's something that you're walking toward, there's something that you're striving toward, you will get lost in the process. The title of this episode is called Stuck in the Process. And when I say stuck in the process, I don't mean, stuck in the process as a negative thing. I mean that if you pull yourself out of this process prematurely, you're running the risk of affecting the outcome.
Nothing ever kept going whenever you quit.
And I'm going to use this analogy. When I was younger, my mom used to bake a lot of pound cakes.
Love pound cake.
Which is probably the reason that, it's her fault. I'm trying to trim down a little bit.
Moving right along.
Pray for me. Okay. All right. Moving right along. When I was younger, my mom used to make a lot of pound cakes. And one of the things that I've always paid attention to after licking the little thing that, the batter would be on, because that's what fat kids do. All right. Don't judge me. Judge your mother. Amen. And judge mine because she let me do it. Okay. After doing that or whatever, it was like she would take the pound cake. My mother would take the pound cake, the unbaked pound cake, and she would put it in the oven. And she would put these little toothpick type things in it to make sure that it baked properly. And she would pull it out after it was done, and she would take a knife and go around and make sure that it was baked on all sides. We need to begin thinking of ourselves as that pound cake. Yes, there will be heat involved. Yes, there will be pressure involved in the process. But the moment that you decide to take yourself out of that oven prematurely, you're affecting the product.
Right.
And the scary part about that is this. Depending on how the cake was in the oven, half of it may be baked and half of it may not be. Mm-hmm. So if that cake was intended to serve 10 people and only half of it is baked, you've cut down the effectiveness of the cake.
You weren't in the fire long enough.
You weren't in the fire long enough. So the amount of people that you were destined to reach has been limited, has been reduced. Why? Because you pulled yourself out of the process prematurely. One of the most important things that you can remember from this episode is that if you pull yourself out of the process prematurely, you will negatively impact the outcome. Oh my goodness. How many of us are like that half-baked cake that needs to go back in the oven so that the other side of us can be finished? I know I am.
Me too.
Because there have been situations where I felt like I was right. I felt like I was ready. Has anybody jumped into anything that they felt like they were ready for and weren't? Listen, I tell you what, one thing I thought I was ready for is moving out of my parents' house. That was a trick of the enemy.
Got me.
Okay. I thought I was ready for a brand new car. What?
Got me again.
God took his sandal and slapped me in the back of my neck so hard. Golly. I remember the other month I was sitting there thinking to myself, I said, what if I let these people come and get this car?
Take it all.
You better judge somebody else. Don't do that. My car payment is how much? Now, I done got past this, so you already know. All right. Anyway.
Too much.
Listen. You have to allow yourself to be finished. If you pull yourself out of the process prematurely, you negatively impact the outcome. There are experiences that we have to have.
Where's your testimony going to come from?
I'm telling you. What do they say? What is that? What is that quote? How can there ever be any glory without a story? Wow. How can there be a testimony without a test? Yes, you may be called. The name of this podcast is Character Over Calling. You may be called, but have you been proven?
And then the crazy thing about it, like when we talk about us going through things and having a testimony, the point of having a testimony is to bring somebody else out. So you put yourself out the process prematurely. How are you going to be able to bring somebody else out who might be going through the same thing you're going through?
And I think that's the main purpose of us, even doing what we do, even here on this podcast. This is not an easy thing. You know, it is hard to put yourself on display in front of people and talk about issues that are very real to you. I can remember plenty of times in my life that, you know, I wanted to give up, you know, I wanted to give up on my voice, but I realized that I was trying to give up on something that I haven't even found yet. Can I say that?
Go ahead.
Some of you are trying to give up on your voices and you haven't even learned them yet. You haven't even found your place. You've not even figured out what it is that sets you apart for this generation, and you're already ready to give up. If you pull yourself out of the process prematurely, you will negatively impact the outcome. Because let me tell you something. You may be going through it right now. You may be trying to figure out, you know, what your purpose is, why you're here. Let me remind you, you still have one. Yes, you are here for a reason, and you are in a process. There are 3 parts of a process that I like to talk about: denial, acceptance, and survival.
Denial, acceptance, and survival. Okay.
Denial, acceptance, and survival. What is the denial part of the story? The denial is the fact that when you first realized that you were different, you probably chose to deny the fact that you weren't like everyone else around you. You probably chose to say, okay, well, you know, maybe if I ignore it, then it won't be real anymore. Or, you know, like little kids do when they get caught doing something. Maybe if I freeze and stop moving, my mom or my daddy won't be able to see me. How many of us have been doing the same thing? How long have you been frozen and standing in place? Trying to avoid people seeing you for who you really are. Whoa. How long have you been trying to sit still in hopes that people would forget about the gifts that you have? Let me tell you something. You can sit there as long as you want to, and you won't hurt anybody but yourself.
Still gonna be there. Because
one day you're gonna have to move again, and it's still gonna be there.
Don't pick up them feet. You're gonna have the same stuff laying in front of you.
Same stuff laying in front. And what I'll ask you is, as someone who has in the past, you know, at times tried to hide from the things that they are gifted with, that they are graced for, you know, how have you handled the process of having to be comfortable with being seen for who you are and what you do?
I'll say I'm still trying to figure that process out, but slowly starting to move forward throughout the help of Tyson and others. But like, it's all about, still like I go back to the same point. It's all about how you see yourself. It's all about how you can figure out how to get the glory out of yourself. I can deny being accepted as, you know, being good at what I'm doing, being talented, because also we had like fear of, first of all, being in the front and fear that we might not accomplish what we have going next. And that fear will like, it'll breed you content. In fact, like you're cool with being where you're at because you don't want to move forward to where you need to go. So
yikes.
I'm slowly trying to move forward and out of that, but it's a steps. You got to take steps to go ahead and get out that process, that mindset.
And we say it all the time. I mean, when where I've been already has already cost me so much, sometimes I got to think about the fact of whether I'm even willing to move toward what God has next for me.
Is it even worth it?
Is it even worth it? And of course, I know in my heart, I know, listen, not only is it worth it, but I don't have any other choice.
Right.
But we talked about those emotions earlier. They tell us a story that's very real, but it only speaks to where we are right now and not to where we're headed. The second part of this process that we go through, you know, first was denial. The second is acceptance. Do you not know that this process will beat you into accepting who it is that you're called to be? You have a choice of either embracing who you're meant to be or ending up shoved into a situation
being forced
where you have to acquiesce. What does that mean? To reluctantly rise up to who you're supposed to be.
That's the way the world works. One way or another, you're going to have to step in your destiny.
Literally, you can either embrace it or you can end up in a sink or swim situation. Those are so real. First was denial. Second is acceptance. Listen, the best thing that you can do is, if you're in denial right now, go ahead and move away from that. Man, I remember it was days where I would cry because all I wanted was to be normal. One of the hardest parts of my life has always been accepting the fact that I am not like the people around me. that my journey won't be the same, that I won't have the same experiences as all of them. I had a hard time trusting that my life would make up for the things that I felt like I lost. But one day I realized that it would be safer for me to embrace who I am and where I'm headed than to continuously try to run in the other direction.
Right.
It's like running in the opposite direction with a tire tied around your waist.
Just dragging everything with you.
Dragging everything with you. All you're trying to do is pull your destiny in the other direction and it won't go. The resistance is because your destiny is not from your past, it's in your future.
I like that one.
And the last step, what? Denial, acceptance. And the last one is survival. Listen, I know it's hard, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to decide to do whatever it is that's necessary to make sure that you make it out of this process in one piece. I'm reminded of a story in the Bible that talks about Paul when he was involved in a shipwreck. And Paul was a prisoner at the time that he was telling this story. And they had ended up in a storm, even though Paul had advised the shipmasters that they should not sail because of the way that the storm was looking. They were right in the middle of that storm, and they were trying to find a way to get to safety. And the shore was coming up. They could see it in the horizon. They could see it nearing. But at a certain point, they realized that they had no choice but to crash the ship into the shore in order to make sure that they would get to safety. When they crashed the ship, the under part of the ship actually broke, and there were pieces of the ship in the water. And the shipmaster told some of the prisoners, listen, those of you who can swim should jump off of the ship and swim to shore. But those of you who cannot should jump off of the ship and grab onto one of the pieces in the water that will carry you to safety. Tyson, what are you saying? I'm saying that just like in this example of Paul with this shipwreck that we see in the book of Acts, when that ship broke, that is literally a direct symbolism of our reality shattering in our lives.
What'd you say? What do we have to hold on to?
The broken pieces.
Got to hold on to the broken pieces.
The reality is this. Your reality has to end so that your destiny can begin. Some of us have created this fictitious version, of our lives. And for some reason, we've convinced ourselves that we can go our own way, that things will be the way that we want them to be. The best thing that you can do is get in line with your future.
Right. Like you said, if you don't go into it, one way or another, you're going to be forced.
You're going to end up there.
And your life will be shattered.
But the good news is this.
It's okay.
Even though a part of the process is surviving the shipwreck, even though a part of the process is surviving the ship falling to pieces, you can still get to safety.
Still get there.
Because it's your shattered reality that is going to provide you with the vehicle that you need to get to your next destination. Wow. Destiny begins where your reality ends. You've got to get to the end of yourself to get to the beginning of where you're headed.
That's good. And I know, like you say sometimes, or we talk about sometimes, even like with relationships, talk about how like things may be broken over time, how relationships and situations may not be how we wanted them to be in the end. But in the ending, we might be able to create something new, be able to build something better than what we had before. It's not about how it was, it's about how we can build a future.
Absolutely. And I'll just be transparent. One of the craziest moments of my life was when a relationship that I had for years ended. And I would like to say abruptly, but it was not abrupt. Of course, there were signs over time. That relationship ended. And I was walking around sad and depressed because I felt like there was no way that I could move forward. But the truth of the matter is this. I had created a reality in my head with someone who I could never be with long term.
The worst ones.
The worst and the best at the same time. I had created a reality in my head where we could be together, where we could get married, where we could have children, where we could, conquer the world together. All that weird stuff that, you say when you're in a relationship. I had convinced myself that I was going to have that.
You're Prince and Charming.
Right. Prince and Princess Charming. Listen, I thought that I had that. I thought that, it was real to me. But when that reality shattered for me, that's when I had the opportunity to begin living. Mm-hmm. Do you know how much time we spend consuming ourselves with things that can't go with us? Mm. You know how much time we spend consuming ourselves with this idea that we can go a different way? The reality is this. You're all in a process right now. And there are one of three places that you can be: denial, acceptance, or survival. Now me, I've decided to survive.
Gotta decide to survive.
I've decided to move forward. I don't have a choice. What I want to do today is challenge you to do the same thing. Listen, last week's episode, which would have been our Depression Awareness Month episode, which is an extremely important topic that needs to be discussed, that is not taboo, that has to be talked about in all communities across all races. We just have to have it. Last week was a very special episode, so I want you to consider this to be the introduction. You may have heard some things repeated from the first season because I need you to remember where we came from so that you can see the vision of where we're going. As you can see, it's much nicer, like we have like all this lighting and stuff like that in here,
Beautiful.
It's very grand.
Beautiful. Very grand.
Very grand, very uppity, very, very bourgeois. I don't think I said that right. I was going to say bourgeoisie, but I felt like I was using that word. Listen, anyway.
Sure, anything. Go ahead.
It's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. I'm going to get it one day. Yeah. Yeah. Line 8 out. Guys, we're getting ready to go on a journey. And next week's episode is going to be very interesting. And it's called They Always Change. This is going to be rough. It's going to be hard. It's going to be, very, very, very revelatory, very grueling, but you're going to be all right. Okay. And listen, well, before I do that, brother, do you have anything else you want to say?
Not too much. Just make sure that you choose every day to live and not stay stuck where you are, because if you stay stuck, you won't be able to get to that destiny that you're called for. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a destiny. Everybody has something they're called for. But if you don't tap into it, you don't take the steps that you need to get to it, it was all for nothing. It's all vain. So.
And I'm telling you, I can't get to the end and realize that I've done all this for nothing. I'm not stable enough for that to happen to me.
I don't want that.
I can't do that. This has to mean something.
Has to.
So guys, listen, just a couple housekeeping things. If you have not followed our social media already, make sure you
do that.
Please click whatever you have to click. Okay. Our subscriber count is very low. This podcast needs to get up. Yeah, I'm about to say that.
Instagram,
that's
go over to YouTube.
Ridiculous. But anyway, please subscribe to the YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at Character Over Calling. I know that we should definitely have a much shorter Instagram name. I'm still trying to figure that out. Pray my strength in the Lord. Or maybe I'll just be typing in Character Over Calling for the rest. Or maybe you just cut on our post notifications so you can know when we post. Yeah. You can do that as well. That works. Follow us on there. Listen, we're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on Amazon Music. We're on YouTube. Listen, ain't no way.
TikTok
that you talking about. Well, we need to. We're working on that. We're working on that. Ain't no way you talking about you can't find this podcast. Stop lying.
No way.
You're a lie. You're a bald-faced lie.
Straight from hell.
You can find it from the pit. You can find this podcast. And don't DM me talking about you can't find where you can get the episode from. It's in the highlights.
It's in there.
Anyway, listen, y'all. This season gonna be so good. I love y'all so much.
Love y'all.
We love y'all. And we're so excited that y'all decided to come back and view this for a second season. We're just gonna keep going higher and higher and higher, getting better and better and better. And if you don't mind, we'd like for you to stick with us through the process. So y'all, listen, I love you. Until next time, y'all stay safe. Y'all know y'all can reach out to us anytime. If it's topics that you want to hear about, DM us, comment on this video. Please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you do on whatever platform it is that you're viewing this on. Do that. And listen, we'll see you in a little bit. Love you.